Welcome once again, fight fans. Sean O'Connell, Dan Hardy, DAZN MMA. Lots to talk about after a wild weekend in our beloved sports. Dan, I always enjoy the gossip that surrounds the ending of complicated relationships. And in the world of mixed martial arts, one of the most complicated relationships the sport has ever seen is coming to an end. The UFC and USADA, the U.S. anti-doping agency, are parting ways at the end of 2023. Your initial thoughts?
Well, I'm a little bit disappointed because, of course, I feel like that was something that the UFC added to, I guess to the sport. I mean, they were pioneering in that sense where they brought USADA in to try and clear up and track fighters to make sure that they're clean all of the time. But these relationships are always never straightforward, and I don't know. I mean, it's a complicated situation, is it? I'm disappointed that the UFC are moving away from them because they've got that consistency, and from personal experience, not being in the pool, but having them show up at the house to test my wife. They find us here, they find us in hotels wherever we are. They are very consistent and thorough. So I hope the company that's replacing them is going to keep that same kind of standard, but it's never a good look because it's turbulent and it's public. It wasn't like okay, this makes sense for us to move away for a financial purpose or whatever. This company can offer it for a cheaper rate or do a better job and have a more sophisticated technology. Like there are other reasons, but the reason why is because of it feels like it's because of the situation around Conor McGregor, which I don't know. It seems uncomfortable.
Yeah, the optics of this are that the UFC wants Conor McGregor to fight before the end of the year, and that Conor did not take the necessary steps to enter himself back into the testing pool for USADA. It would have had to have been this past summer, right? Because you have to be in the pool for 6 months and submit 2 negative tests before you're eligible to fight. And because he did not do that, did not give the USADA testers enough time with him in the pool, they can't use him. They can't use him for a big end of the year show. They can't use him in the locations that they want to use him. And I think, at least optically, it looks like that's a big reason why this relationship fractured and why the UFC is going a different way. And obviously, USADA loses a ton of money, right? That's a regular customer. That's a high profile entity that is using your services. So they're not happy with it, and they're going to put out the statements like the ones that they have put out, right, that are maybe a little scathing and suggest that the UFC is no longer invested in keeping a clean athlete pool. And that's where the question really comes in. The UFC has established a new relationship with Drug Free Sport International, Kansas City, Missouri-based company, DFSI, and a lot of what they offer is similar to what USADA offers. Not quite as notable of an organization, but of course, association with the UFC will make them a lot more talked about.
Yeah, of course, it's great news for that organization, and you've got to think that they're going to rise to the occasion and do their best to impress the UFC and make sure that they're doing the job that they've been brought in to do. But it kind of reminds me a little bit of the Mark Hunt Brock Lesnar situation, which of course ended in a long lawsuit. Like, for me, I don't know. I mean, it seems like there are particular fighters that they just command such a huge amount of money. Brock Lesnar being one of them, Conor McGregor being another. That there's bending of goalposts a little bit sometimes. To try and make those fighters available. And you've got to appreciate the integrity of USADA for kind of sticking to their guns. I think the mistake that they did make was to just put one statement out and not have like 4 or 5 different people sit at a press conference and give a different version of it and use words like disgusting and you know what I mean? It's like honestly, in the modern day, as I watch these things play out, I'm like, in the modern day, you've got to control the narrative, and the people with the most power are the ones that do that. And this is where the UFC are always going to win that narrative, especially if it's being made like USADA have treated Conor McGregor poorly because he has such a massive fan base. Like in actuality, I think you're right. I think USADA stuck to their guns and said, look, a 6-month pool is a 6-month pool for a reason. Like, I'm not going to get into speculation, and we can do, but it makes sense for them to hold their ground on this one,
Wait, you're saying that it makes extra special sense that USADA doesn't want to be lenient with the Conor McGregor, that we are seeing this version of Conor McGregor that happens to be just a little bit puffier of face and more swole of muscle than we're used to seeing. It
Look,
does make sense that USADA puts their foot down given those optics as well.
Look, I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt because for a long time he had that big beard, and we just don't know that whether he's kind of grown into that beard underneath and then shaved it off. And
we know.
So sometimes I've been thinking about shaving my head because it's getting kind of annoying in training, but then when I shave my head, all of a sudden my head looks twice the size because then the hair's missing. I don't know whether it's like an optical illusion in that sense, maybe. But look, right, okay, look, let's talk.
Two things can be true. Two things can be true, Dan Hardy.
Go on then.
We can love what Conor McGregor represents, what he has done for the sport, the notoriety that he's brought, the money that he has put into the pockets of everyone associated with mixed martial arts by being a global star. You can love all of that, and you can see at face value what is happening here. Conor McGregor has been taking steroids, probably to recover from his broken leg, maybe because he likes how he looks with bigger pecs, whatever reason. But the guy is juiced right now, okay? And USADA said, we're not going to let you fight because Uncle Dana wants you to fight in December. We're not just going to say, okay, we'll do whatever you want. And that perhaps severed this relationship that was already tense.
Yeah. Yeah, and and if that is the situation, if he's been like, it was the same thing with Anderson Silva after his leg break, wasn't it? Like, he was clean up until that point, then he went away with a broken leg and came back 13 months later and failed a drug test, but had a fixed leg. Like, you've got to wonder what that cast looked like when it came off. Like, there would have been a lot of muscular atrophy. Is that the right word?
It just split off, right? He just flexed his calf because he was on all the good stuff, and then the cast just boom.
Quite possibly, yeah, quite possibly. But McGregor's not going to get into the pool until he knows that he's going to pass a test, is he? So if he has been using something to recover from an injury, then it makes sense for him not to enter the pool within the time that he needed to, because he was probably not going to pass the test. Like that. That's what makes sense to me in this situation. But like, who knows? I mean, he does look different, doesn't he? He does look different. I will say that.
Guys in the sport have done this. I mean, performance-enhancing drugs in the pioneering days of mixed martial arts were all over the place. Everyone was using, right? The Pride days, everyone was using, and it's been part of the sport. Unfortunately, it has, and it still is in a lot of ways, because some of the biggest fights that we have seen or not seen, right, have been marred by positive tests. Have been. You brought up the Mark Hunt, Brock Lesnar situation. Obviously, John Jones reacted well to USADA no longer being part of things because he had a couple of run-ins with USADA, right? Now this Conor McGregor thing, and people want to be entertained, okay? Also, the UFC is now partnered with the parent company of WWE, right? That's all in one shop. And they don't care if Brock Lesnar in a wrestling ring is juiced to the gills. They don't care if Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson has been on every form of testosterone ever created by man, because that entertainment allows for it, comes with the territory, quite honestly. Let me ask you this. I want to get your honest reaction to this question. Do you believe that the Ultimate Fighting Championship is still, heading into 2024, committed to a clean athlete pool? Do they want to keep the sport of mixed martial arts performance-enhancing, drug-free? I'm not talking about coke. I'm not talking about weed. I'm talking about, do they want to keep steroids and HGH and things like that out of their athletes heading into 2024?
Yeah, I think they do, because I think, I think a large portion of the fan base expect it. I think a lot of their investors would expect it. And I don't think it's a good look to then all of a sudden have these freakish looking athletes stepping in and really doing a lot of damage to people. Like, that ultimately is what's going to happen if people are allowed to do what they want. You've got to keep testing. You've got to keep as clean a sport as you can, and try and stay ahead of the curve as well, because like that that technology is always improving and evolving as well. Like, who's not watched Icarus and had their mind blown by that level of technology? And when you have large amounts of money to play with, you have options open to yourself that other athletes wouldn't. Like, if I was in the USADA testing pool or the drug-free sport testing pool, I wouldn't dare use anything. I would probably wouldn't even be using supplements because I don't have the budget or the knowledge to know what I'm doing, right? And I'm a welterweight that never had abs. You know, that's that's like that doesn't happen these days. You know what I mean? Like everybody's in supreme condition, but they're also not looking particularly freakish. Occasionally you see someone and you're like, yeah, hang on a minute, but it's they've got to be tested, and if people are passing tests while they're competitive, then I'll feel much better about the sport as a whole, because we just don't want to see something terrible happen. And if you start creating superhumans and allowing them to use what they want, someone's going to get really hurt, and that's going to look bad on everybody.
So the other question, the transition from USADA, which ends very last day of 2023, DFSI, Drug Free Sport International, taking over in 2024. The question becomes, will they have a 6-month restriction, right? Do you have to be in their testing pool for 6 months? Will it be 1 month? Will it be 3 months? Will it be no months? And as long as you show up on fight day and pass those tests clean, what's it going to be? I mean, we have to figure out how these details work. But one of the kind of really significant developments in the sport of mixed martial arts was when the UFC adopted uniform testing policy across the board for all their athletes. Now they're moving away from USADA specifically, but we hope and believe, I think, in my case too, that uniform testing will continue. I do want to read one little piece of information before we get out of here from the DFSI website. They offer something called customizable testing panels. DFSI understands that each organization possesses distinctions to its culture. To meet our clients' unique goals and needs, our staff works with you to develop customized drug testing panels that target specific drugs and substances. We bring our expertise to the table and consult with you on the most widely used substances by athletes today to ensure the best allocation of your resources. So, we don't know the details on the partnership with the UFC, but this company does allow the organization to say what you test for. That's not something that USADA allowed. Food for thought.
Interesting observation, Sean O'Connell.